Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. Today we are sitting down with a woman who needs no introduction, but I'll give her one anyway. She's a philosopher, a novelist, and a firebrand who defined individualism for a generation. Welcome to the show. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
Thank you, Calvin. I am Ayn Rand. I am a writer, but more importantly, I am the creator of Objectivism, a philosophy that celebrates the power of the human mind and the moral right of the individual to live for their own sake.
Straight to the point. I love it. Let's go back to the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born on February 2nd, 1905, in St. Petersburg, Russia. At the time, it was the capital of the Russian Empire, a place of great culture but also great upheaval.
And what was your given name at birth? Was there a story behind the name we know you by today?
I was born Elisa Zinovievna Rosenbaum. The name Ayn Rand was my own creation, my first act of total reinvention upon arriving in America in 1926. Ayn was inspired by a Finnish name, and Rand provided a sharp, rhythmic conclusion. I wanted a name that belonged to the person I intended to become in the land of the free, not the girl I left behind in the Soviet Union.
That sounds like a clean break. What was your hometown of St. Petersburg like growing up?
It was a city of majestic architecture and intellectual intensity. My father was a pharmacist, and we lived a comfortable, bourgeois life. But that world was shattered by the Bolshevik Revolution when I was 12. I watched as the state nationalized my father's pharmacy, reducing our livelihood to nothing. The city I loved became a place of grayness and fear.
That must have been incredibly difficult for a young girl. What kind of kid were you back then?
I was intensely serious and quite solitary. I taught myself to read at age 6 and was writing my own stories by 9. I found schoolwork dreadfully boring because I was always miles ahead in my own mind. I didn't care for the games other children played. I wanted to discuss ideas and heroism.
Did you have any big fears or dreams as a child?
My biggest fear was the crushing weight of the collective, the idea that my life belonged to the people rather than myself. My dream, however, was consistent from a very young age. I wanted to be a writer of fiction that depicted the ideal man. I found my first hero in a French magazine at age 8, and that vision of a heroic, sovereign individual stayed with me forever.
So you make it to America, and you're looking for a start. What was your first job?
My first job in America was as a junior screenwriter in Hollywood. It was a stroke of incredible luck. I was standing at the gates of the studio, and none other than Cecil B. DeMille noticed me. He gave me a lift in his car and eventually a job as an extra on his film, The King of Kings. I even worked in the wardrobe department for a time, just to keep my foot in the door.
Talk about a big break. Was there a specific moment where you realized you were truly different from everyone else?
It was during my university years in Russia. I saw my professors and peers bowing to the new communist truth, sacrificing their reason for the sake of the party. I realized then that I was a creature of pure logic in a world increasingly dominated by mysticism and collectivism. I knew I had to leave or be destroyed.
You faced plenty of struggles. Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. To quit would be to surrender my mind, and that is the only thing I truly own. Even when The Fountainhead was rejected by 12 publishers, I never doubted the value of the work. I knew the truth of my ideas, and I knew that if I remained productive, the world would eventually have to take notice.
Many people find your success fascinating. Were there daily habits you felt were essential to that success?
Thinking is a habit. I spent hours every day in focused, rational thought. I also had a very disciplined writing routine once I began a project. I lived by the clock and by my own standards of excellence. If a sentence wasn't perfect, it didn't stay.
What about the downside of fame? What misconceptions do people have about you?
People often mistook my defense of selfishness for a desire to harm others. That is a grave error. By selfishness, I mean the right to one's own life and happiness. People thought I was cold, but I was simply passionate about the truth. I did not despise the poor. I despised the idea that poverty gives one a moral claim over the life of another.
Who would you say had the biggest influence on your life?
My father, certainly, for his quiet passion for ideas. But intellectually, it was Victor Hugo. He showed me what a heroic novel could be, and of course, America itself, the only country in history based on the right of the individual to exist for himself.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I passed away in New York City from heart failure on March 6, 1982. I was 77 years old.
Let's lighten things up with some quick facts. What was your favorite food?
I was quite fond of simple, hearty things. Sweets were a weakness of mine, chocolate and cakes, and I drank vast amounts of coffee to keep my mind sharp while writing through the night.
Do you have a favorite book? One you didn't write?
Les Misérables by Victor Hugo. It is a masterpiece of the Romantic style, even if I disagreed with some of his political sentiments.
What's a random fact about you that most people haven't heard?
I was a very passionate stamp collector. It was a hobby that required organization, history, and precision. All things I value.
Now, before we wrap up, do you have any closing remarks or stories you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would only say this. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserved but have never been able to reach. The world you desire can be won. It exists, it is real, it is possible, and it is yours. Thank you, Calvin, for allowing me to speak my mind once more.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute thrill to hear your story in your own words. From a pharmacy in St. Petersburg to the bright lights of Hollywood and the heights of the New York literary world, what a journey. And that wraps up another conversation from beyond the grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.